Hello and welcome to Knit Until I Die. My name is Jamie and I live in the southeastern part of Wyoming. It is a gray and hold on just one moment. Sorry about that. I what was I going to say? It's a cold and gray day outside. We still have some snow on the roofs and on the ground. Um, Quite a bit of wind, but it's better than it was last weekend. Now, if I'm talking kind of funny, I do apologize. I had to have oral surgery yesterday. So things are still sore and not real happy with me. Happy New Year. I hope you all are doing really, really well. Just to let you know, Mom's out of the house and I don't expect her back until probably closer to 2 or 2:30. But if she does come home while we're still talking, the dogs may bark, they may not. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Bella's out in the kitchen right now, keeping watch for Mom. And Humphreys is over here to the left underneath my Volare pillow, where he often likes to sit, sometimes under, sometimes on top of. Today's topic that I want to talk a little bit about, and then I'll talk about a bunch of other stuff too, I'm sure, because I kind of just go off the cuff. But I'm working on my winter. Would you stop licking? Thank you. My winter coat. I'm partway through the row. Let me see if I can twist it a little bit. There we go. Maybe. I've already split for the arms. This wool came from a brown sheep company, and it is kind of a one-off special, Lamb's Pride. It looks like it may be nope, it's correct for you guys. So this one is 85% wool and 15% mohair. There's 125 yards per skein. It's called Barbershop Blue. And I got it from the Brown Sheep Company in Mitchell, Nebraska. Now, this is the only skein that I left unballed up. I have everything else ready to go. I did try to cake this yarn, but it's actually, I don't know if you can see how, this is Bernat blanket, and then this is the wool. And so let me see if I can get them both side by side here for you. And I don't know if you can see real well, but the wool is actually quite a bit more substantial, and even though it doesn't really look like it, it's actually quite a bit thicker than the chenille blanket yarn. So it does not cake up on my, I have a Stanwood yarn baller. I don't know why we call it a yarn baller instead of a yarn caker, but it makes my, I can make yarn cakes on it. I don't think I was able to show you guys earlier. Maybe I was, but I don't think so. This is the yarn that my mother's boyfriend got for me. I wasn't expecting anything like this. So this one is called Groot, Groot. I think that might be a reference to, what is it, the Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not really a movie person anymore. Haven't been for a long time, but this is a really nice dark, how do you say this? This is a very nice dark hue rainbow. I haven't quite figured out exactly what I'm going to make with it, but I do know it's going to get used. And then I got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I may not be knitting for a while, but last Friday, I had a cousin, my cousins from Denver came up and they brought me another chair. It's not this one that I'm sitting in. This is the one I got from my aunt and my uncle. Well, my aunt and her husband. And then the one that's off over there is the one that I got from my cousins down in Denver. And we got to have dinner. They came up to Cheyenne and we got to have dinner. It was kind of funny because I had to go down for a doctor's appointment and they brought the chair up here. And so they met us up here, I don't know, like 4:30, 5 o'clock. And they got the chair, mom and my cousins got the chair in. And then we went to dinner with the cousins. And if you ever come to Cheyenne, there's a couple of good places to eat. I really like the Albany, which is downtown. It's a historic restaurant. It's been there a long time. And they're really known for like their prime rib and their prime rib sandwiches. And I can tell you that their prime rib is really, really good. So, you know, during dinner and then afterwards, we were talking and they were talking about, some of the cruises that they have gone on and will be going on. And they really enjoy that stuff. And I'm so glad for them. I would not enjoy that at all. But anyways, on their cruises, they sometimes are supposed to I'm a little confused on the details. I don't know if they're supposed to find them or have them or bring them or exactly what. But if you find these or have these or whatever, like rubber ducky things, or something that's kind of like similar, then you get like tickets or points or something. I don't know. It's a game that they play. And so one of my cousins asked me if I could make them some rubber duckies. And I'm like, oh yeah, what size? Because I have the, I believe it's called the Dixie Mama Duck crochet pattern from Crochet Vision. And it's the older style, not the new stuff that she's put out. I think she's gone back and revamped pretty much all of her patterns. Anywho, so I have this pattern and they're like, oh, we want something small. And so I've kind of been dinking around with the pattern, trying to figure out how to appropriately size down. Which we'll see. I mean, it may work out, it may not. But in the meantime, she also, bless her heart, she decided to get me some Woobles kits. Now, this one is a chick, and I think that this is the one that she thinks looks like a duck, like a rubber duck. And I will show you the different ones that I with this pattern, I did one the way that the pattern said. And then after that, I kind of started making a little bit of modification here and there to see if I could get it to look the way I wanted it to. And I'm going to tell you right now, it didn't happen. Now, I am going to do a video about the Woobles and what I've created. And that will come out on, I have to finish filming it, but it's coming out on Wednesday. So look for that. It's going to be a pre-recorded one. It's not going to be a live. I'm going to try and do more pre-recorded stuff, but I'm going to try and do stuff that I don't have to do a whole lot of editing on, because that's where I get really stuck, is doing the editing. Because even with the software I've got, it's taken me quite a while to try and do editing, and I'm really not good at it. So I am going to get you some more videos out, and I'm still going to do my lives. But I'm going to do videos that have little to no editing, just so that I can get them out to you guys. Welcome. I see that we have another person that joined us. I hope you're doing well. I am working on this, which happens to be my, I'm making myself a winter coat. If you don't know, my name is Jamie, and I live in the southeastern part of Wyoming. I hope you're doing well. Happy New Year's. I don't know if you made any resolutions or goals for the next year, but I am going to say that I didn't, other than I want to have a good year. I want to look for the positive. I want to look for the joy. But I'm not putting as much stress on myself, or I'm going to try not to, and see if I can't have a better and more productive year. I'm going to keep doing my lives on Saturdays, and then I'm going to try and put out a regular video every Wednesday. I don't have the exact time of what time it's going to go out yet, but once I kind of get that finagled and figured out, I'll let you know. It'll go out on YouTube and on Twitch. Those are the two platforms right now that I feel the most comfortable with. So I am using wool from the Brown Sheep Company. I'm knitting this, obviously. And these are, come on, Jamie. I should know this. These are 10 millimeters. These are Chaigus. I did have a different cord on here. I went back to the red lace. The other cord I had broke. I used it for like 2 days and it snapped off at the connectors, and it was a Chaigu cord. But it wasn't really meant, I don't think, for these specific needles. And that's okay. I just wanted to try the cord because I thought that it might be helpful. But when it snapped, that was not helpful. Let's see here. I hope you are having a great day. Here in Wyoming, we still have snow on the ground and snow on the roofs. There were a few patches of blue sky when I got up this morning, but now I'm not seeing any. It's pretty gray. It's been pretty gray for the last several days, which is kind of odd for Wyoming. We tend to get quite a bit of, even on gray days, we still get sunshine and blue sky, which is really helpful for me. I don't like it when it's just gray all the time. I find that it's kind of depressing to me. But I do like the snow. I do like the snow. I wish that we had more moisture, because we're in a drought here in Wyoming. I know that there's a lot of other states that are as well. And I feel so bad for all those people that are dealing with the effects of natural disasters, because people are still dealing with the effects from like the hurricanes and the flooding and now the fires. I feel grateful to live where I live. We have, for the most part, I think we live in a fairly safe area. We kind of live, Cheyenne is kind of in a basin. So a lot of weather, unfortunately, a lot of weather tends to kind of go around us. But we also, Wyoming has experienced wildfires as well, but not, how do I say this? Very devastating, but not, I don't think, as life-threatening as what you see going on in California right now. I think a big portion of that is because Wyoming is just so sparsely populated. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm a city kid. I love living in town. I think I would absolutely hate living out of town. Um, Mainly because if I need something, if we have to go to the doctor or we need to go to the store, relatively, it only takes you 10 to 15 minutes to get anywhere in town. And that's also in rush time. We don't really have a rush hour. It's like a rush 15 to 20 minutes, and then it kind of calms down again. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a small state. We get earthquakes here, which is probably kind of surprising. But Yellowstone has a lot of tectonic plate movement. And of course, it's a volcano. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And we do get earthquakes here in Wyoming. They're nowhere near like what you see in other areas, like in California and stuff. Um, but we do get them. It's just Wyoming is just a different place. It's It's different, when you've lived here for a long time, because you kinda get used to, if you need something, more advanced in the medical stuff, you learn that you go to, like, Nebraska, or um you go to Scottsbluff, Nebraska, or you go to Salt Lake, Utah, or you go to Billings, Montana, or you go down into Colorado. Because of where we're at, it's just closer for us to bop over into Colorado, or Nebraska, but Colorado is better for me. And so that's where I go. But like realistically, if you want to do something, um, like go to the theater or stuff. We do have small productions, in Cheyenne and across the state. But if you want to see something bigger, or you want to go to a concert or something like that, we tend to go to, because of where we're at, we tend to go down into Colorado. And then again, if you're closer to Utah, you're going to go down to Salt Lake. If you're closer to Billings, you're going to go to Billings. Just because we just don't have the population to support stuff that larger communities can. I'm never going to be a cowgirl, even though I live in a very sparsely state. We're not really that big of an agrarian state. I think that there's a lot more, how do I put this? How did I do that? There it is. There's a lot more of our public lands. We do a lot of hunting, and well, I don't, but in the state, people tend to do a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing, hiking, skiing, a lot of outdoor stuff. And yes, we do have the largest outdoor rodeo, and that happens every July. And that's called CFD, or Cheyenne Frontier Days. Um, that's not always my favorite time of the year because we live on a very busy street, and we live on one of the few connecting streets that goes from downtown out to Frontier Park. And it's also one of the main drags for town. And so it gets pretty noisy out there. Although with the snow and the ice and stuff, the traffic has been a lot quieter, which is really nice for me and for Humphreys, who got off and got down into his bed. What else? I'm not really planning anything right now, like road trip wise. I would like to go back to Brown Sheep Company and just see what they have and browse. I like going over there. Um, it's really cool now that I've been through there. Um, they let you tour the mill, like when they take the wool and turn it into yarn and then they dye it and all that stuff. And it's now that I've seen the way that they do it, I've been watching stuff on YouTube about how other mills do it. And it's really kind of interesting that um, some of the machines are the same and then others are way different. But it's really kind of cool to see how you take the wool roving, because basically that's what they've got, because it's been washed and carded, and it's basically ready to be spun into yarn. And they take that and they can turn it into any size, let me say this correctly, any thickness of yarn. And so you can have really thin stuff that they make for like cross stitching and embroidery. And then you'll have thicker stuff that's made for knitters and crocheters. This one off isn't one of their usual lines. They do a lamb's pride that is, I think, really close to a worsted weight for. But it is what it is, you know, like it's it's a good yarn and I really like it. And I think once this is finished, I'm going to like it. But I do find that it is harder for me to work with. I have knitted a sweater, actually two, I think, with these needles. And using 2 strands of Karen, I don't have any right now, Karen cotton cakes, and it worked up beautifully. And I did not notice the strain on my hands. And of course, that was a year ago, so maybe things have shifted for me. But the other side of the coin is that this is really stiff and thick. And I am finding it harder to knit. Maybe not harder. I don't think harder is the correct word. It's more strain on my hands, and so I end up using my wrist braces to kind of help. Plus, I do arm stretches. And as you've probably noticed here, I set it down frequently. I'll work for a little while, and then I set it down, and then I work for a while, and then I set it down. Because I don't want my hands or my wrists or my arms to hurt. Especially since last night I was up until 3:30 this morning crocheting, because I had a thought in my mind. And so I was trying to figure out how that was actually going to work. And so I was thinking around and didn't realize how late it was. And then I flipped my phone over and it was like 3:30, and it was like, oh dear, gotta go to bed. So since I know that I kind of stressed my hands and my wrists out yesterday, I just want to make sure that I'm not doing that frequently. I have found that crocheting is easier on my hands and harder on my shoulder, and that knitting is generally easier on my body. But this particular weight of yarn maybe not even weight of yarn. I think it's this particular yarn. It's really tightly spun. It is really thick. It's definitely, I think they call it, let me see here. I'll look again, see if it tells me. It doesn't. I think it's categorized as like a bulky, but I think it's closer to a super bulky. And it just has more body to it than like Karen Cotton Cakes, which is a 4-weight yarn. And even when you double it up, you don't get this stiff type of fabric. But I do like it. I really like the color. It's called Barbershop Blue. It's a dark blue. I do have to say that if they'd had a purple one, I would have bought them out of all the purple. But they didn't. And this was, I really love purple, obviously, you know. But if I can't get my hands on purple, then I do like blue and greens, sometimes pinks, but not so much. My mom really likes pinks, and she is almost done with her Tequila Sunrise crocheted cardigan. And I probably said that last time too, but she really is getting close to finishing it. And hopefully when she does finish it, I can convince her to let me take a photo so that I can show you guys what it looks like. I'm really proud of her. She's stuck with it, and she's run into some problems, but she's problem solving through it. She's not trying to, how do I say this? Fake it till you make it. I do that a lot. If I find that something's just not quite right, I'm more likely to just fudge it. Unless I want it to, unless it's like I'm following a pattern and I really want it to be correct, then I'll rip back. And it's so much easier to rip back with crochet than there is for knitting. But I am getting better at ripping back with knitting. But yeah, that Woobles kit, I actually got it in the mail right before I went to the oral surgeon's office, and I had that first chick. Other than stuffing it and putting on the wings and the beak, I had it done. All I had to do was stuff it, close up the, sew up the top, and then put on the wings and the beak. And that really didn't take very long. And I ended up making 4 different versions of it. And I've ordered more safety eyes, and I've ordered a different yarn. Here it is. So this is like a t-shirt yarn, but it's a blown yarn. So it's a tube. It has kind of like a white inner core, and then it's got the yellow outer core. And when I had to keep like ripping back to on one of my projects that I was working on with this yarn, what I noticed is that the inner core and the outer layer easily split. And then you get this like wrinkling in the yarn. I did not like that. The other thing is this yarn is stretchy, but as it stretches, it thins out and doesn't necessarily plump up like other yarns do. There's other t-shirt yarns that are really nice. I really don't like this one. It's the Woobles yarn. Um, I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that really like it because it is soft like a nice t-shirt. But I found that I didn't really like working with this particular yarn. Um, so I ordered other yarn and it'll be here on Monday. And probably next weekend I'll show that to you guys. It's not a secret. I ordered some feels like butter in, I can't remember if it's buttercup or if it's yellow. But it is a version of yellow, and that'll be here on Monday. I love that yarn. It is a more forgiving. I find it to be a more forgiving yarn. And I really like the feel of it. I don't mind polyester yarn because this yarn is actually cotton polyester. And I do like the polyester yarns. Sometimes I like the chenille yarns. The thing with the chenille yarns is I do not like garments made with them, because you can have thinning of that chenille as you wash and dry and wear and stuff. And I think that it's good for like plushies and toys. And yes, in some cases for blankets, although it makes really heavy blankets. Um, but if you've kind of been around a little while, you know that I like making garments. And so for me, blanket yarn is just not a garment yarn. And there's a factory knot in it. Um, but it is, it is good for some things. I do like the feel of it. It's just the chenille yarns and the chenille type yarns I wouldn't use for clothing, especially the older, I don't have it right here, but the older Premier Parfaits, those, man, those thin out real quick. But I haven't tried any of the newer ones, so I can't actually tell you about the newer ones. My goal is I have a huge box right here with yarn. I have some yarn up there and here. I have some yarn behind you. Well, actually, an entire box of yarn behind you. And then I have a bucket of yarn for making scrunchies. And my goal is that by this summer, by July, what I would like to have accomplished is to have worked through the yarn that's up there, the yarn that's down here, and maybe not all, but at least part of the yarn that's behind you. And then I want to make the scrunchies too. And I have a ton more of that yarn downstairs that I could make more scrunchies. But I think I have like 80 already made. And I don't know how many I really want to make of the scrunchies. I did find that buying my elastics from the Dollar Tree was less expensive than trying to get them from like Walmart or Amazon. And that may change. Like every time I go to buy stuff, I like to try and check out the sales and the deals and see if I can get it cheaper somewhere. Of course, being in Wyoming, we don't have a whole lot of options. It's not like our town has like 2 Joann's or something like that. We have a tiny Joann's in our mall. We have a pretty decent sized Michael's that's behind the mall. And then two shopping centers over from the mall is where our Hobby Lobby is. So it's all kind of in one area. Oh, speaking of which, I don't often go to Hobby Lobby. I have my reasons, but sometimes you just have to. What did I do with that? I don't know. I'll find it later on. Actually, I have one here. I am definitely someone that has enough hooks. I don't need any more hooks. But I do have to say that this style of smaller hooks with the grip, when I'm doing like amigurumi, the smaller stuff that I'm not using the blanket yarn on, I really do like these. They're nice and solid. They're not too big in my hands. Let me see if I can find the other style that I like. I like just metal ones as well. But when I'm working with the amigurumi, I definitely like this style. Or the lighted ones. Oh, here it is. This one has been chewed on a bit. When we first got Bella, she was a chewer. So that was 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago. So that tells you how old the hook is. But this style of hook I also like. Of course, both of them I got at Hobby Lobby. If I'm using like a 4mm to a 5.5mm, I really like just using a regular metal hook. I like how it feels on my hands, and probably because I grew up using these, that's what I'm most comfortable with in a lot of cases. I don't even know where I got this one. But like I have different styles of hooks that I've tried. But realistically, most of the stuff that I create myself, I'm using metal hooks. But that's, that's just kind of some of the stuff I use. What else? Oh, I didn't tell you. This is a self-drafted crochet shirt. This is Karen Cotton Cakes again. I'm sorry, I don't remember the colorway. I bought it from Michael's Pro because you can get you have to buy a large quantity, but you get a discount on it. But yeah, I have a lot of clothing that's made out of like Karen Cotton Cakes or wool. Well, I shouldn't say just wool. Most of my clothing is Karen Cotton Cakes, or I also have I also like to use sock yarn, so it's like 85-15 wool to nylon, or 75-25 wool to nylon. I just like easy care items. Plus, I like the way that those fibers feel. This is meant to be a coat, so it's an outer wear garment. So I'm not so worried about the way that it would feel against my skin. I'm more worried about making sure that I'm warm and comfortable in our Wyoming wind. And I will most definitely be, because this is like really warm. The other thing is that this is 100% wool, and it's not treated. So this cannot go in the washing machine. It can't go in the dryer unless you want to shrink it and felt it, which is not something that I want to do that way. My plan right now, but it could change, is to steek the front and put in, I was going to say metallic, magnetic closures, which I think would be easier on my hands as things with my health and stuff continue on. Oh, I got some really good news. Yes, I still have really bad cirrhosis of the liver, but for right now, my liver is coping fairly well, and all my liver enzymes are finally back within normal limits. So we're very happy about that. What else? I am enjoying spending time at home with the dogs. Mom's been doing other stuff out of the house, and so I've got to spend a lot more time with the baby and Tisters. So that's Humphreys and Bella. And I really enjoy just spending time at the house. I used to be someone that liked to go, go, go. And now it's like, I'd rather just stay home and knit or crochet or try and read or just hang out with the dogs and listen to YouTube. Um, I am so glad that Vlogmas is over. I don't know how you guys feel, but I kind of felt overwhelmed with just the sheer volume of video content that people were pushing out. I like those videos later on, going back and watching stuff, but in the middle of it, I really don't like those videos. There's just too much coming at me at one time. What else? Well, my mom's down, she in Colorado. Someone that she worked with had passed away. And so she and some of the other members of the Nurse Honor Guard have gone down. I think it's in Fort Collins, but don't quote me on that. Could have been Loveland too, but they've gone down to honor that person at the funeral. And they do a little, I shouldn't say little, they do a ceremony that they have a couple things that they read, and they have like a triangle that like gets rung. I think that's only for nurses though. And then like they have the lamp candle. They hand out white roses. What else? They have kind of a little ceremony that they do for nurses. There's a little bit different one that they do for physicians, and the one that they went down to today is for a physician. And it kind of surprised me that this particular doctor had passed away, because I remember this doctor, my mom working with him when I was a kid, and even when I was in my teens, and was I in my 20s? Yeah, into my 20s. And it was always kind of interesting to see the people that mom worked with. My mom worked at the VA, and she worked there for many, many years. And so there's a lot of people that used to work at the VA that I know or that I knew. But yeah, I remember this particular doctor, and I was kind of surprised. But on the other hand, I think he'd been ill for a while, but most people just didn't know. There was another doctor that we knew, but he was a younger doctor. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, year ago, 2 years ago, that passed away from a heart attack. And it was just real sudden. And it was, I think, surprising. Well, not that I think, I know it was surprising for a lot of people. But yeah, my mom does the Nurse Honor Guard, and she carries around their big black box and keeps it organized. And it's just like, okay, Mom. Oh, we're snowing again. It's pretty, but then it makes me worried because Mom's out on the road, but she's not driving, someone else's. So hopefully they're being careful, and, we'll see them when we see them. Because it may not even be snowing down there in Colorado. It is so weird. Wyoming doesn't have any borders that are actually based on like any geological features or water features or anything. So all of our boundaries are kind of like arbitrary, but not exactly, because when you hit the state line between where I'm in Colorado, the weather changes. And it can be blizzarding up here. And then you cross that state line, and within a couple of miles, you could be in really nice, warmer, sunshiny weather. So yeah, it's usually a little bit worse up here than it is down in Colorado. And of course, being on the interstates, it's going to be worse because there's no trees and no houses to block the wind and the snow and stuff. But as long as they get home before it gets to where it's really sticking and icy, they should be okay. One year I was visiting a friend over in Laramie, which is like 50 miles away, and it's at a little bit higher elevation than where we are here in Cheyenne. And when I went over, it was beautiful. It was sunny. It was a little chilly, but not a big deal. And I went to lunch with my friend, and we must have been in the restaurant maybe 2 hours, and we came out and our cars were covered in snow. And like not a little bit of snow, but like 3 inches of snow. And this is in July. And I was like, oh Lord. Because I've seen it snow in July, but I'd never been on the road when it was snowing in July. And I very carefully drove home. But by the time I got to Cheyenne, there was no snow. It was the roads were wet like it had rained, but the sun was out, and it looked like a completely different day over here. And so Wyoming weather is quite unpredictable. And a lot of times on the news stations and stuff, they'll say, oh, you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, it's going to change. And in some respects, sometimes that's true, but a lot of times that's not really true. It's not common for us to get snow in July, but it does happen. Usually we get more like rain showers in July. What else? And then there's CFD in July. And so usually during CFD, we oftentimes will get a couple of rainy days. CFD is kind of odd. It's not my favorite time of the year. However, there are like free activities that you can go to. Like you can go to the parades on Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. You can go to the pancake breakfast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or you could go to the Thunderbird Air Show on Wednesdays. And I think you can get onto the airport where the National Guard is, where they do the because they bring in like old planes and stuff, and you can walk around and learn about the planes. What else? And they may even still do tours out on the base, but I'm not sure about that. Because of course, F.E. Warren Air Force Base used to be Fort Warren, and it's a different. It's times have changed, and I don't do much out on the base anymore, so I don't know if they used to do tours, but I don't know that they still do stuff like that. But there's always stuff to do. And of course, there's the carnival, which is always overpriced, in my opinion. But it's not like I'm going to go ride rides or play games or, that kind of stuff. I know it's fun for kids to go, but it's not something that I would do. So I would never spend the money on it. We do get country and rock acts that come in for the night shows. We have the pro bull riding stuff that happens. We have the rodeos during the daytime. Mornings, I don't know if it's every morning or specific mornings, but they do cowboy church out at the stands, and I believe that doesn't cost anything to go to. Usually during that time, we're also having ranch rodeos, like out at the Bison Ranch, which is just a couple like 8 miles outside of town. It's just a couple miles from the state line. It's out by not all of them, but out by a lot of the fireworks businesses. We have a ton of businesses. Well, maybe not a ton, but to me, there's a lot of businesses that sell fireworks. And we get a lot of people that come up from Colorado or come in from Nebraska, come from different places to come here and buy fireworks. Because although we can't set them off, you can buy them, which to me seems kind of odd. But yeah, that's kind of our I guess our claim to fame in this part of the state. But we have Devil's Tower, we have Yellowstone, and Devil's Tower is pretty neat to learn about, but you can't really get close to it anymore like we used to. And so I don't know how much of a sightseeing adventure it really is. But it's not that far from Mount Rushmore over in South Dakota, but it is in Wyoming, because we touch Colorado, South Dakota, Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, and Utah. We are quite surrounded. And of course, Yellowstone National Park is huge. And it's always changing. So there's always different things to go look at and different things to do up in that area. And then if you're on the Montana side, I can't remember the name of the town, but you can actually go panning for like sapphires and stuff. My grandma did that, and she got several sapphires that she had set into rings, and then I think a necklace maybe. Our family, for whatever reason, we like sapphires. Yeah. Probably because that's my mom and my grandma's birthstones, and they're beautiful. And then I come out and I'm born in early November, so mine is not pretty. But that's okay. I still like being born in November. I like a lot of my friends were born like in the summertime, and so they always had like a ton of people go with them to like the swimming pool or to the roller rink to celebrate their birthday. But when I was a kid, I got to celebrate from Halloween all the way through my birthday, because Halloween is a week before my birthday. And so I used to think that everybody got dressed up in costumes for my birthday, and they'd come to the house and get candy, and then I'd get candy. Of course, that was back when I was quite a bit younger, but there were many years where we celebrated my birthday from Halloween all the way through my actual birthday, which probably is kind of weird. But my grandma, for years, celebrated her birthday on the 25th. No, I'm lying. On the 27th. There we go. And then she came to find out that she actually wasn't born on the 27th, but she'd already retired. And I think it was after my grandpa died was it? No, it was before my grandfather died that she found out that her actual birth date was the 25th, not the 27th. So, okay, she's going along, and we changed when we celebrated her birthday, but we'd celebrate her on the 25th and on the 27th. And she always liked to say that my mom was her early birthday present, because my mom was born on the 23rd. And so she came 2 days before Grandma's birthday. Yeah. And then when after my grandfather had died, my grandmother was working on, I don't know, some paperwork and stuff, and found out that the way that she'd been taught to spell her name and spelling her name for many decades was not the way that it was written on her birth certificate, but it's the way that it was spelled on her passport, on her driver's license, on all of her medical records. And so she went to, and in her school records and stuff, it was all spelled the way that my grandma spelled it. But the her birth certificate, it was spelled a little differently. And so when I think she was like in her 70s when she figured it out. So she went in front of a judge, and she got the judge to help her change her birth certificate so it would be the same as all of her other legal documents. But see, she was born at a time when you weren't born in the hospital. You were born at home, number one. Number two, they didn't have to report your birth right away. And so they might not report your birth for a couple of days or a week. And so we think that the person that helped my grandmother's mother fill out the birth certificate spelled grandma's name wrong, and no one caught it because her name was Patricia. But it was missing one of the I's. And she always spelled it with the extra I. But on her birth certificate, it didn't have that. So that's kind of what we think happened to her. And, back in those days, things happened. I mean, that was back in the time where actually, if you had a child pass away in the dead of winter and the ground is frozen, this is going to sound awful, but to preserve the body until they could actually bury it, they would wrap it up and hang it in the trees. And it sounds kind of gruesome now, but they didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have mechanical ways of digging up the ground when it was frozen. When you're back in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, there was a lot of stuff that we kind of take for granted now that they didn't have. So yeah, it was a different time. It was definitely a different way of living. Yeah, but Grandma always called it the good old days. And I don't know if it was, if you took someone from modern days and put us back there, if we would actually call it the good old days, or if we would think where we're at right now is the quote unquote good old days. I don't know. Because I'm pretty, I'm not going to say I'm addicted to my technology, but I'm attached to my technology. Because I oftentimes will have something playing in the background, whether it's music or it's something on YouTube. I really like listening to history stuff like Time Team, Digging Up Britain, and then some of the stuff about like Central and South America. I don't find the stuff about like the archaeological stuff that's going on right now, like around me in Wyoming and Montana, as interesting. But I grew up here knowing there's dinosaur bones here. I grew up knowing you find fossils around here. So it's not as interesting to me as learning about other places and other cultures. Because where I'm at, most of the archaeology is focused on, dinosaur bones and fossilized bugs and stuff like that. You're not talking about human cultures. And I think that's really what I like about a lot of the history stuff that I do listen to, is that you get to hear about the progression of culture and society, and possibly how people hundreds or thousands of years ago would have perceived different things, like, a volcano or an earthquake or different things. Like, there was one scientist, I don't remember where he was from, maybe from Europe. But he worked with other scientists because he found in the tree record that there, because you can like read the tree rings to find out what was going on, maybe not year to year, but maybe decade to decade. And they were able to figure out that, sometime in a basic era of, I think, like 5 or 10 years, that back in the like 530 common era, they found that for, I think, close to a decade, that the trees just didn't have a lot of growth, and that the environment got really dark and really cold, even during the summers. And they were able to figure out that what had happened was there was a pretty big volcano explosion on an island, and the debris and gases and whatnot hit got up into the atmosphere, and were, for quite a while, were blocking a lot of the sun's rays. And so it was darker, it was colder. But that's kind of cool that we can, look back at trees and then different written records and other records to figure out what was actually going on. And, there's not written records for like anything. Well, I shouldn't say anything, but there's really not a lot of written records about like pre-Roman Europe. Well, there's some, but not a lot. And what's interesting is they're able to look at like different burials and look at different things that they find in burials, or they, find in areas that would be considered a house. And they can kind of talk about the culture and what's going on and why you would find that there. And to me, that stuff is pretty interesting. I am finally back on to watching my knitting and crocheting. Not necessarily vloggers, but different people that I like to listen to. I really like Mandy Von Knits. She's pretty awesome over there. And then I also like listening to Passionate Kelsey and Crochet Vision. Sometimes I like listening to Blondie Knots. I also like listening to Made by Gemma. What else? There's a few that I like listening to. Well, probably more right now than normal. Maybe, I don't know. I also like listening to Needles at the Ready. Although I have to be in the right headspace for that. I love Ruth. Ruth Loves to Knit. She is such a character. And I'm not as fast at knitting or crocheting as some, and I may be faster than others. But I do like seeing what other people are doing. But I'm not really that enthused about just watching like a day, like a weekly vlog sometimes, because you end up sometimes talking about the same things. Like, I started it and then I finished it. I started it and then I finished it. And so it makes it seem like they, have hands that work 1,000 miles a minute. And I think some people are able to knit and crochet really, really fast. And then other people work at other speeds. But sometimes that can be kind of discouraging when you see someone that they do one like one knitting update, and then a week later they come back and they finish an entire sweater and they finish socks or whatever, and you're going, um sometimes I can, knit or crochet some like a garment in like a week or 2 weeks. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. It just kind of depends. um have I made a sweater in a week? No. I think the shortest amount of time was like 2 or 2.5 weeks. But I'm making sweaters for me, and I'm somewhere, I think, with how loose I like my garments to be, I think I end up making them close to like a 4X, which is quite a lot larger than a lot of the people that I follow, that they're, making like a small or a medium. And so it makes sense that they can whip out a sweater faster than I can. But sometimes that can be kind of discouraging, because I want to be as productive as possible, but I'm not always that productive. And so sometimes that can be kind of like, good Lord, why can't I like my hobbies. I love my hobbies. So why aren't I better at my hobbies? But on the other hand, those people that I watch may not have, in fact, I know they don't have the same health stuff going on that I do. And it doesn't invalidate their stuff that's going on in their lives. It's just different than what I deal with. And how I deal with what's going on is, I bet, quite a bit different than how they deal with their stressors. And so, plus, I'm normally not an insomniac. I'm not someone that could go to bed at like 3:30 in the morning and then wake up at 6. My grandma would do stuff like that all the time. Oftentimes she'd go to bed at like midnight and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she'd go all day long. And she just drove the rest of us nuts, because by the time you get up at like 8 o'clock, well, she's telling you that half the morning is gone already. And why didn't you get up and do this and do that? And I'm one of those people that I need my 8 hours of sleep, at least. Sometimes I need more than that. Like right now, I need a little bit more than that, but my iron is back in the tubes again. So we're going to be doing iron infusions again. And I'm kind of disappointed, because usually my iron infusions, like, they happen and then they last me for about a year. This time it lasted 2 months. And it's like, that to me, that's not good enough. We got to figure something else out. So we're working on a plan. We just don't have the plan figured out just yet. But we're working on it. But yeah, having no iron means that your blood doesn't effectively move oxygen around your body. And so you're just more fatigued and more tired. And that's definitely where I'm at right now. Is I spend a lot of my time feeling really, really tired. But it is what it is. I work with what I've got. Both dogs are sitting here by me, but they're staring at the back door. They're wondering why Mom hasn't come home yet. Bella is such a strange dog. She's a Chiweenie, but when we got her, she was less than a year old. And good God, she chewed everything. She ate my medicine, chewed up my medicine and ate it. She would chew up my hooks if she could find them. She would chew up pens and pencils, socks, underwear, blankets. Like, she'd chew up all kinds of stuff. She'd even go out in the yard and pick up rocks and chew on rocks. And she actually cracked one of her teeth. But we didn't know, because she didn't act like anything hurt until she went in for her wellness visit that year. Or was it the next year? I think it was the next year. She went in for a wellness visit, and the doctor's like, oh, she has a cracked tooth. And poor Mom was like, what? But Bella's one of those dogs that just doesn't, she tries to hide when she hurts. Not like hide her body, but she just doesn't tell you. Um, Although now that she's getting older, she has a congenital birth defect on one of her knees, and so it will lock and not unlock sometimes for her, and it's I'm sure it's painful, because sometimes we can tell that she's just not having such a great day because she doesn't get up and move as much. And definitely colder days are harder on her now. But she gets joint stuff, and she gets a pain medicine, and relatively she's, even though we can tell because she's carrying her leg or just not doing stuff, we can tell that she hurts, but she won't tell us that she hurts. Humphreys, on the other hand, he can stub a little toenail and scream. Like, he's a lot more, in some ways, sensitive than Bella is. And he's definitely more aware of the environment. He loves to watch TV. And a lot of people kind of like look at me like you're crazy. No, this dog will sit in my lap and stare at the TV. And he enjoys watching like dog shows and Caesar Million. What else does he like to watch? He likes watching the sheep, like on the sheep game, and Sandy Brock. He likes watching, there's a lot of stuff that he likes to watch, but he really likes to watch other dogs. And well, that and chickens and llamas and sheep and goats. He's way more aware of what's going on than Bella is. Um, he also is just very interested in the TV. And unlike Brody, my aunt's dog, Brody, like every time he sees a dog, man, he barks and goes off. Humphrey usually doesn't bark and go off. He just is very intent on watching it and seeing what's going on. Because he's just a different dog. Watson would sometimes watch the TV when he was younger, but it was more because like he heard a dog barking or something like that. Humphreys, on the other hand, like literally will sit there and watch animal shows with me. And he's engaged, his ears are forward, he's really intent on watching the TV. And so when we told his when he told the dog trainers that we were working with a while ago that he would watch TV with us, they're like, oh, okay. And then they put on they had a TV screen and they put up some videos about like how they do stuff with their dog, and Humphreys immediately trained in on the TV and was like watching and listening and very intent. And they were like, wow, because they really hadn't seen that a whole lot before. And even though Humphreys is supposed to be a scent hound, I swear he's a sight hound. Dachshunds are actually scent driven usually, but this one is sight driven, and hearing driven, but more so sight driven. Because if I throw a treat and he doesn't see it, he might look around a little bit, but then he comes back to me because he wants his treat. And he if he didn't see where it went, he's not going to go get it. Because he just has no idea where it is. Whereas Bella, I can throw a treat out for her and she will sniff until she finds it. But on the other hand, Humphreys is way more watchful, not only for the TV, but like just in general outside. He sees so much more than she does. And he is so much more aware of like the birds and the squirrels and the neighbors and other dogs. And yeah. And then I guess one of the neighbors is kind of mad at us because Humphreys barks. But when the lady came over to like complain about it, We had, I think we had company, and then I also think we had like the Roto-Rooter service or something here. And was I at work or what? I don't remember where I was, but I wasn't here at the house. And Humphreys was freaking out. There was just too much going on. And mom was trying to work with him to help him calm down. And then the neighbor lady came over to complain, and mom just didn't have the bandwidth to talk with the neighbor lady about it at that point in time. So now the neighbor lady avoids and doesn't talk to mom. And it's like, okay. I mean, dogs bark. He shouldn't be out there, barking us incessantly. And when he tries to do that, we call him back into the house. But the other side of the coin is he's not the only dog that barks on our street. Our neighbors have a corgi that a lot of times is outside barking. And she sounds a lot like Humphreys. And but we don't leave Humphreys outside all day long. We don't let him sit out there and just bark, 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 because he is a reactive dog. And we know that. But the other side of the coin is he's still a dog. And so he's still going to bark some. And I don't know. And I can understand why certain things may be harder on other people's nerves, because the traffic can be pretty hard on my nerves. And we live on one of the busiest streets in town. But the other side of the coin is that I recognize that people have a right to drive their cars up the street no matter how loud they are. We don't have an enforceable right now law about the what is it called? A noise ordinance. I mean, we have one, but it's not enforceable. So they're going to be noisy. And I don't have to like it, but I do have to live with it because this is where I live. And we do our best to make sure that our dogs are not outside just barking their heads off, because it can be annoying. We recognize that it can be fraying on the nerves. But the other side of the coin is that it's not just my dog barking. There's my neighbor's dog that barks. There's neighbors over here that have a dog that barks. There's neighbors that are behind these neighbors that are kind of upset with us. The house over there has children and dogs. Children screaming, dogs barking. There's, all kinds of noise going on. And realistically, in their house, you cannot hear the traffic like we do, because we're on the corner and the road runs right in front of our house. Their house is halfway down the street. So yes, they get some of the noise, but not as bad as where we are. So how do I know? Because we used to live right next door to where they live right now, in our old house. So plus I've been in every house on this street, because we've lived in this neighborhood. Outside of me moving to a couple other places, most of my life I've lived in this neighborhood. And I grew up in this neighborhood. I lived here as a young adult, left for a while, came back, left for a while, came back, left for a while, came back. And now I'm back in the same neighborhood, just in a different house. And I don't know. I guess maybe because I've lived here for so long and we've had so many different neighbors, that I recognize we don't have to get along. We can just be civil. And to me, being civil is smiling, maybe giving a wave, maybe not. That, do I wave to the neighbors? Yes. Do I smile at the neighbors? Yes. Do I expect them to smile and wave back? No. Would it be nice? Yes, but they don't have to. Not everybody's having a good day when I'm having a good day, and not everybody's having a bad day when I'm having a bad day. I just try to be more, how do I say this? I try not to complain. My grandma used to complain about stuff all the time. And so I try not, I don't want to turn into my grandmother. I do not want to be that person that like calls the cops on the neighbors and, is yelling at the kids and, doing all that stuff. Because to me, that's not the person that I want to be. And, my grandma lived in this neighborhood from 1975 to 2023. So she was here a long time. Mom's lived in this neighborhood since 1983. Which is when we both moved back from Texas at the same time because I was a brand new baby. But I don't know. I just recognize that they have the right to have their feelings, and I have the right to have mine. It doesn't mean that we have to be rude to each other, I guess is what my point is. But the other side of the coin is I don't live with her husband. I live with my mom, and my mom is a freaking saint as far as I'm concerned. The stuff she puts up with and the stuff that she does, just going out of her way to make sure that my life is easier, that the dog's life is easier. So my mom is one of those people that is always thinking of others and trying to do better for others. So, and it's, they came here from another state. And when you've lived in Wyoming long enough, we're the cowboy state, right? So you kind of get told to buck up and, pull up your bootstraps and just move on. But not everybody has grown up with that culture and climate. And, it is what it is. So, yeah. And, I'm not always a happy person. I'm not always, I'm never going to say that I'm perfect because Lord knows I'm not. But I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And when I find myself judging someone, I go, oh, I'm judging someone. I shouldn't do that. Because I want to be a more respectful person than my grandma was. And I don't want to turn into my grandma. And it's not that I didn't love her, because I did, but my grandma was a very harsh person. And she had she could be loving, but she could also be very, very harsh. And it was her way or the highway all the time. And she alienated a lot of people. And I don't want to do that. And, she could be really rough on my mom. And again, I don't want to do that. My mom does a lot for me, especially since I can't get down the stairs anymore. My mom has basically taken over doing all the laundry. And, there's other stuff that I can do, but getting downstairs and then getting back upstairs is pretty difficult. And when I'm low on iron and low on potassium, I get dizzy, and it's just not safe for me to go up and down the stairs sometimes. So my mom does it. She's been very kind about that. And, she just does nice things for me. Like yesterday, I needed to go to Hobby Lobby. And all I needed was like 2 hooks. And I came home with 6 hooks, scissors, a really long darning needle for plushies, and then some of this braided, I think they call it cordage, and I know that they use a lot of this stuff for like macrame. So this is a recycled yarn. And, I don't really like shopping at Hobby Lobby, but for what you're getting, the $5 is really a good amount, but it was obvious that they're trying to, I think, get rid of this stuff. Um, so yeah, I picked up some of this, and then I picked up new scissors, and a really long darning needle. And mom was really nice and paid for it. She didn't have to, but she was very kind and paid for it. And she just does a lot of nice stuff for me, and for others. So I just always count my blessings, because although my grandma was hard to take, my mom is an angel, my papa was just an absolute saint. um it's not that he was perfect or that I think she's perfect, but the stuff that they put up with in their lives to make other people happy, and the way that they would go out, that he would go out of, and the way that my mom does go out of her way to do little things for me that are helpful and kind, and she doesn't have to do, um, let me know that I'm very loved and very well taken care of. And the truth is that for her, I try to do things when I can. Um, and like if I can, I try and get items that I know she's not going to buy for herself that she would like. The other thing that I do, is I always count my blessings and tell her that I'm grateful for her and the dogs and my Aunt Susie, because I am. I mean, I truly would not have survived, all the stuff that happened in 2016 and 2017 and 2020 and 21 and 22 and 23 and 24 without my mom. Um, she just she spent pretty much her whole life taking care of people. When she was little, she would help take care of her grandma and change her grandma's bandages. She would help take care of her younger brother, who was very, very ill and died, I think, when he was about 7 or 8. And then she went on to be a vet tech to help take care of animals. And then she became, a registered nurse and took care of people at the VA. And then when my papa got sick, she helped take care of him. And then when grandma started going downhill, she helped take care of grandma. Every time I've had a health issue, mom's pretty much been there with me. And back in 2016, at first, I don't think she realized how sick I really was and how quickly I was going down the tubes, until I couldn't even stay out of the hospital for 2 weeks. And then she realized that it was time for her to retire and, help take care of me and my grandma, because at the same time I needed my colon out because I was bleeding out, my grandma was having brain bleeds she had 1 active and I think 2 chronic. And so like they had to do burr holes and they had to do surgery and stuff. But grandma wouldn't go to the hospital until mom came home. So mom literally got me out of the hospital, came home, and took grandma to the hospital. And she brought me home from Denver and then turned around and took grandma to the hospital here. And, I'm sure it was very, very tough on her, but she handled it so well. And then, taking care of grandma, and as grandma and I both had gotten sicker and had more problems. And, mom, God bless her, my mom used to kick herself because she didn't realize when I was a kid that I had ulcerative colitis. In fact, I wasn't diagnosed until 2016. And so I was like 32, almost 33, I think, when I got diagnosed. And mom just could not believe that she did not realize what all was going on. But the other side of the coin was when I became an adult, I talked to my doctors and nobody was very concerned about it. And the bleeding, oh, that's probably just hemorrhoids. You spend too much time on the toilet, la, 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 la. Okay. And that's what I believed for many years. In fact, how long was that? Yeah, probably for about 12 years or so. I really believed that I had hemorrhoids, but they didn't hurt. I just bled. And then we finally found out that I had ulcerative colitis, but the hospital had screwed up. And so mom thought my ulcerative colitis wasn't very bad. Well, 3 months later, I needed my entire colon to be taken out. And mom and I, we didn't tell each other this, but we both thought that I was going to pass away and that it was a dire situation because it was. Um, but we didn't tell each other that until I think after Christmas when I was actually kind of doing a little bit better. And then she felt like she could tell me that. And I'm like, I didn't want to tell you, but that's exactly what I was thinking too. But it was a very scary time. But mom always kept her cool and always helped explain things and, just helped make things better. And she always has. And she worked after she retired from the VA and got grandma and I kind of back on our feet. She went back to work as a psych nurse, and I think she enjoyed that. I don't know. She doesn't talk a whole lot about it. But then grandma and I started going downhill again, and I needed an ostomy revision, and grandma needed back surgery, and life just got too complicated. And that was and mom retired right before COVID. And I am so glad that she did. Because COVID was extremely hard on the medical community. It just was awful. So I'm glad that my mother was able to get out when she did. Because I really think that there's a lot of people that were in the medical field, are in the medical field that deal with PTSD from a lot of stuff that had to happen during COVID. And, hindsight is 2020. Yes, we know now that we could have done things slightly different and, but at the time we were in the middle of almost an unprecedented catastrophe. The whole world was. And everybody was just doing their best. And I didn't like being hospitalized during COVID because I was a couple of times. But the other side of the coin was it meant I didn't have as much supervision when I was in the hospital. And so I could just, as long as I stayed in my room, I could do pretty much whatever I wanted. And so I could get up and walk around and, knit and crochet and do other things to try and kind of keep myself busy and occupied. And my mom couldn't come down and be with me, but we talked on the phone, and I talked to a ton of people on the phone. And so for me, I kept myself busy so it wasn't so bad. And I realized for people that couldn't do that, it was really rough. But it was a time that none of us probably ever thought that we would live through, like anything like that, right? And now we have the benefit of living through that. Yes, there was a lot of horrible stuff that came out of COVID, but I think we also learned to be more appreciative of what we have and be appreciative of the time that we have with people. Plus, we also decided that I think a lot of people, not everybody, but I think a lot of people decided that you don't work your job just to survive. You need more than just a job to survive. And so if the job you're working or the two jobs you're working means that you have nothing else outside of that, you're going to burn out and you're not going to have um, you're not going to feel comfortable with yourself. You're not going to feel comfortable with your life. For a short time, maybe for a couple of years, yeah, you can do it. But should you? I think that I've gotten to the conclusion that we should pay people, find a way to pay people enough money that they can work one job and put a roof over their head and have a vehicle and, afford the stuff that they need. As well as healthcare. I think healthcare needs to be, maybe not healthcare. How do I say this? Insurance really needs to be overhauled, um, because it's a mess, and it's not something that like the doctors can control. It really truly is. I think something that's going to have to be legislated through Congress, but I don't know that Congress wants to do that, and I don't know. I kind of I don't know. We'll see. I get frustrated sometimes because it seems like, um, especially in Washington, that we can't just have a straightforward bill that fixes one thing, like a bill that, I don't know, raises the minimum smoking age to 21. Like, if you can drink at 21, you should be able to smoke at 21. Um, or something like that. Not that I'm saying that that's what it should be, but just that, if we were going to enact a law, it should just be about that specific problem. It shouldn't include, rioters and money to all these different organizations. It should really just be about that specific problem, which means we would probably need a lot more laws. And I do understand that, but I think if our laws were more clear cut and the way that the government is funded was more transparent, and I don't mean taking money away from veterans or from defense or from, taking care of people that are in poverty or, whatever the situation is. But do I think that that Congress needs new desks or that Congress needs a raise? Not particularly. And the reason that I say that is I think that people that are in Congress should make the same amount of money as an entry-level person in the military. And if they can survive on that money alone, which I don't think they could, but if they could, maybe they would recognize that paying people what they're worth and paying people a livable wage would be a really good thing. But that's just my soapbox. Because again, I don't work up there. I don't live in their shoes. I don't have all that pressure, people trying to contact me and wanting this done and wanting that done. I'm just me. And I do understand how the government works, but the other side of the coin is I don't walk in their shoes. I don't have to live their life. And so me making comments is my opinion, but that doesn't mean that it's the right thing. So, yeah. I'm really excited for this summer. Mom has a bejeebies amount of plants, plantlets and plants that are growing right now, and they're doing really well. My mom has such a green thumb, it's not even funny. Um, I bet you we have close to, if not more than 100 African violets, the mini African violets right now sitting in front of me. Plus, we have a ton of like the holiday cactuses. Mom has the Christmas, the Thanksgiving, the Easter, and then I think she also has a hybrid up there. And how you can tell is the different leaves that they have. the shape, the length, the spikies. That tells you what season that particular plant is for. But we have found that a lot of those plants sometimes will flower like twice a year, and it's based more on the amount of light that they're getting during the daytime than the actual like season. And so, like the Thanksgiving cactus bloomed in November, and it's putting on blooms again. So it's probably going to bloom here pretty soon again. Um, and it's all about the amount of daylight that it's getting. Um, and they're sitting in our these are not the front windows, because the front windows are on the front porch, but these windows are the south facing windows, and so you get a lot of sunshine coming in. And it's nice, but it's still dark in here. This house was built more than 100 years ago, and it just is a dark house. I oftentimes have like the overhead light on, and then I have my specialized lamp for doing like knitting and crochet when I'm working on something that's tiny or dark, or I'm tired. I like to have my light on so my brain thinks that I see better that way. Let's see here. It has been quite a while, and I know that I have at least one dog that would like to go outside. So I'm going to say, I'd like you to remember a few things. You're wanted, you're needed, and you are loved. Be kind to everyone, including yourself. I'll see you next Saturday, and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.